All right. I think I'm getting the hang of this, folks. I really do. I think I'm getting it dialed in. Hey, welcome back to Brian for Liberty. Scheduled this one in advance. I promoted it. I think I'm finally getting the hang of this new software that I've been using. So hopefully, come Monday, we'll be even more fancy. I'm hoping to add some additional stuff here just to improve the quality overall of the stream, so it's more engaging for you folks and you enjoy it a little bit more. I want you to stick around and watch the whole thing. That's the goal here. So I'm going to stay to the schedule as it is right now, unless somebody wants to message me or comment that I should be doing this at a different time of day. I'm happy to move it to later in the day, earlier in the day. But right now, I just wanted to get into the habit of getting one out every single day. I think I fit all 5 days this week, although it doesn't look like I did a live every day this week because one of my lives ended up, I don't know, still trying to sort out the technology when I did this one. It was a good one on healthcare that I was actually very happy with. And for some reason, it just didn't work out. I ended up having to do it as an upload instead of being able to do it as a stream. So it's saved under my uploads, but it was actually meant to be a live stream. But it is on there. I think it's worth taking a look at. I'm talking about healthcare in the free market versus universal healthcare. I thought I made a pretty decent point, but who knows? Maybe not. I'm going to be going over a couple of different things today, just giving it a little bit of time here. Make sure we get at least somebody on board here before I get going. But I'm going to be talking today about the defund the police movement. I have a lot of issues with it. It seems to be picking up steam. I'm going to be talking about why I think it's a bad idea. I'm going to talk about I don't understand who the people who are doing this movement actually think that they're representing. Just based on the information that I'm seeing out there, it doesn't look like a movement that has a ton of support. So that, I think, is a serious problem. I heard an analogy the other day, and it kind of rings true. When I think about Black Lives Matter and I think about this defund the police portion of the Black Lives Matter movement, it kind of jumps at me like your two friends are sitting on a bus. Let's say a black guy and a white guy, or whatever. It could be anything. It doesn't matter. So a black guy and a white guy, and they're telling jokes back and forth. Whoops. And let's say black guy tells a joke, white guy tells a joke, and they're kind of digging on each other, and they're making some racial jokes back and forth. They're good friends. They're laughing back and forth, and they're having a good time. And there's no ill intent. They're just making jokes. Which I know in today's society we're not really supposed to I don't know, laugh at each other, have a good time or whatever. But they're just making jokes back and forth. Well, a third party hears this, and when the white person makes a joke about the black guy, decides that on behalf of the black guy, they're going to take offense. I kind of feel like that's what the defund the police movement in this country is, where it's like the police did something wrong. And as the new George Floyd videos have come out, I think that we can agree that Officer Chauvin is still in the wrong, but definitely doesn't appear to be the race-motivated, justifying all of these riots type of action that it initially was sold as. But let's just say this person hears this joke, gets offended on their behalf. To me, that is exactly what this whole defund the police movement is. I don't believe that these people live in violent black neighborhoods. Violent black neighborhoods. Inner city neighborhoods are predominantly black. They're plagued with violence. They're plagued with drugs. These people aren't living there. And they've decided that it is in the best interest of the people who do live there to get rid of the police or to shrink the size of the police on these people's behalf. And I don't know that they have the kind of support that they think they have when it comes to that. And so for me, it's like you're being offended on somebody else's behalf and you're sticking your nose where it doesn't really belong. And quite frankly, you're not problem solving. Okay, that's not the solution to the problem. Isn't defunding the police, and it isn't less police. In the title of this, it said, "Why would we defund the police?" The real question is, I put this on my Facebook page to talk about this. This is, can a libertarian actually defend or be opposed to defunding the police? Seems like a stretch that a libertarian would be 100% on board with defunding the police department, having less police on the streets. Let me tell you something. I want to live in a world where we have no police on the streets. Zero. No cops. No armed government agents walking around to enforce laws. I would love that society. We're not there yet. I've been kind of saying this from the beginning, that attacking the police as a method of reform is trying to problem solve from the bottom up. And we need to be problem solving from the top down. The reason that what's going on with the police is we have too many police because we have too many laws. We have too many laws, which means we have too many police, which means we have to hire bad cops. We have to. If you have 200,000, I'm going to get into all of this in the video, but if you have 200,000 job openings, I don't care what the job is. If you have 200,000 job openings and you only have 200,000 applicants, you're going to have to hire the worst applicant. People say the police is a job where you can't have a bad day or you can't have somebody bad doing this job. I agree. And first of all, let's just bear in mind that every job, every profession has bad people. There's no way to get rid of all bad people in all jobs. Every profession, every group of people, every segment of society has bad people. But it'd be great if there were no bad cops. I'll settle for less. I don't think that bad policing is a chronic problem. When you think about the fact that there are millions of police interactions with civilians every single day, I don't think chronic bad policing is an issue. I don't think it should be at the top of our pile of problems that need to be solved. So I would definitely start there with that conversation and try and work that backwards from a statistical perspective and say, look, the police had 10 million interactions with civilians last year. We had in the age of high level surveillance and constant scrutiny and everybody's videotaping everything, how many of these things happen? There's not tens of thousands or whatever. So I don't know that bad policing is at the top of the troubleshooting chart here when we start looking at what's going on in society. I think it's easy, but stay on track here a little bit. My point is that I would love to see a society with no police, but we're not there yet. I would love to see less police on the street, but I don't think we're there yet either. We've got to fix laws first. You can't just pull the police away. I've said this in several other videos. Here, TikTok, wherever I'm at on social media, I've kind of tried to make this point. You can't start with the police. You got to start at the top, and you got to start determining what laws you think are important enough to enforce, and at what places we could start moving in a different direction. And of course, we talk about the war on drugs, and I've done videos on that. That's a big problem. That if we're going to start reducing the police force, you're going to see a return to crime. So I'm going to get into this here. Let me get over here to my split screen, but I'm going to get into this. And the first thing, when I talk about not wanting that these people who are talking about defund the police aren't representing the people they claim to be supporting, the people they claim to be caring about. I'm not quite centered up. There am I? The people they claim to be caring about. Let's take a look at this. This is the Gallup poll, and it's come out. I've actually quoted this in other places, and people have asked me for my source. I mean, this is a Gallup poll, and I don't know if you think Gallup's right-leaning or left-leaning. I'm not really familiar with their politics. I think they're relatively impartial, but poll services tend to be for the most part, but hey, whatever. So this is the Gallup poll that they did. Black Americans want police to retain local presence. So as you go through the argument, the Black Americans are a bit more likely than most other groups to see police locally. So I think they have a vested interest. Still, most, 81%, want police to spend the same amount or more time in their area, and a big racial gap seen in views of police fairness and perceived bias. And I think that is a fascinating point I'm going to get into as we go through this article. But when asked whether they want the police to spend more time, the same amount of time, or less time than they currently do in their area, most Black Americans, 61%, want the police presence to remain the same. This is similar to the 67% of all U.S. adults preferring the status quo, including 71% of white Americans. Meanwhile, nearly equal proportions of Black Americans say they would like the police to spend more time in their area, 20%, as they'd like them to spend less time there, 19%. So between the African Americans who want to see the same and the African Americans who want to see a higher presence, and I don't know when we went back to Black Americans, African Americans, just Americans for me, but 81% between the two would like to see the same or more police. Defund the police and abolish, and don't talk to me about, well, it means redirecting resources. There's abolish the police, all cops are bad. This is the kind of rhetoric we're getting out there. So let's be clear that this isn't just about moving resources around. Look at the clips from the DNC, the convention, and some of the things that were being said there, and you'll understand that this isn't just about shuffling around some resources. But let's go through here. So Black Americans, more time, 20%, same amount, 61%. White, more time, 17, same amount, 71. Hispanics, more time, 24, same amount, 59. And Asians Americans, 9% more and 63% same. Oddly, Asians had the highest proportion of wanting to see the police less, which is surprising to me because Asian Americans as a whole tend to do very well. And I don't know that you see a lot of, as a demographic, Asian Americans do very well here from a median income perspective, low crime rates, et cetera, et cetera. You wouldn't expect them to have a negative view of police. I don't think they do, 72%, same amount or more. But it would just surprise me that they had the highest percentage of less time. That just kind of stood out to me as odd. It's not what I would have expected. These findings are from a June 23rd through July 6th Gallup panel survey. This is, kind of at the height of all of the protesting and the anger and all that stuff, administered by Webb and English and conducted as part of a newly launched Gallup Center on Black Voices. The study includes large samples of Black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans weighted to their correct proportions of the population. Of these four racial ethnic groups, Asian Americans are the most likely to want to see police presence where they live, or wanted to see less police presence where they live. 28% saying this. Like I said, that surprised me. There's a little difference by race in local exposure to police. The survey also asked Americans to estimate how often they see police in their neighborhood. Black Americans reported exposure to police is slightly above the national average, with 32% saying that they see the police often or very often in their neighborhood. This is interesting because it compares with 20% of white Americans to 21% of Asian Americans. It's about a 10% variance. One of the things that gets brought up a lot is that how over-policed Black neighborhoods are. From the mouths of Black America, that doesn't seem to be the case, at least not resoundingly so. So Black Americans very often 32%, sometimes 41%, rarely, never 27%. Sometimes 42% for whites, 22% very often. So I don't know. The black community says very often or often at the highest rate, the police are there more, but only 32% say they see them often or very often, which kind of flies in the face of the idea that Black communities are over policed from the perception of Black Americans. Most other Black Americans say they sometimes see the police in their area, kind of matching up with the whites. Slightly elevated frequency with which Black Americans see police in their neighborhood has limited impact on their preferences for changing the local police presence. About a third of Black Americans who say they often see police in their neighborhood think police should spend less time there. However, the majority of adults in this group think they should spend the same amount of time or more. So even amongst Black Americans who see the police often or very often, 76% still think that would still like the police to be there as often or more. So even the members of the Black community who feel that they're being over policed or that they see police often still want the same or a higher amount of police presence. This really flies in the face of what left media is telling us. They're over policed, so on and so forth, defund the police, all these different things. From the Black community, according to this poll, according to this survey, the Black community does not agree with that. And to me, this is the shocking thing is Black Americans lack assurance that police encounters will go well. Although Black Americans seem about as comfortable as Americans overall with the amount of police presence where they live, they differ markedly in their perceptions of how their local police might treat them if they were to interact. So only 18% of Black Americans are very confident that the police would treat them well. 43% are somewhat confident. So from very confident to somewhat confident, you do have 61% of Black Americans in that category, 27% not too confident, and 12% not at all confident. That's a major issue. But it really points to something that even though Black Americans largely are concerned about how the police are going to treat them, they are still not wanting the police out of their communities based on this survey. So that's I think that really flies in the face of what we're being told. So so as we go on, let's see, there's a preference for amount of time police spend in areas modestly related to the expectation. The majority of all other Black Americans, including those who are not too confident about receiving considerate police treatment, want the police to spend the same amount of time with additional percentages favoring more time. It's interesting stuff. This is at news.gallup.com. You could do the search on Google to read through the entire poll yourself, but I'm going to continue to go through here. What does matter. What does matter is the quality of the interaction. 45% of Black Americans who reported not being treated with courtesy or respect by the police within the past 12 months want less of a police presence in their neighborhood. Meanwhile, 55% want the same or more police presence. That's a huge difference. Now, I've had a negative interaction with the police. I want them in my neighborhood less, but still more want the same or more police presence, even if they've had a negative interaction with police. This really speaks to the value and the importance that the Black community puts on the police in their own neighborhoods. This is incredibly important for us to consider as we move forward with policy decisions in the wake of all these protests and riots. And also, it takes the wind out of the sails of the anti-police protests that you're seeing all across the country. This is not what Black America wants. You've seen a lot of anecdotal information like this on different websites, YouTube channels, etc., with people just walking through Black neighborhoods, and this is kind of the response that they get. But this is really hard evidence, a real survey that from a respectable entity, kind of crystallizing that view that the idea that we want less police in Black neighborhoods. I'm going to adjust this real quick. Sorry. It's driving me nuts that I'm so far off center. Now I'm off the screen completely. Let's move this around a little bit. There. Isn't that so much better? It probably was driving you guys crazy too. So now it's fixed. Much better. So the bottom line, I'm just going to sum up. It's not so much the volume of interactions Black Americans have with the police that troubles them or that differentiates them from other racial groups, but rather the quality of these interactions. Most Black Americans want the police to spend at least as much time in their areas as they currently do, indicating that they value the need for the service that police provide. However, that exposure comes with more trepidation for Black than white or Hispanic Americans about what they might experience in a police encounter. This is important. This is community outreach. This is the police spending time in the neighborhoods, engaging with the public as much as possible. But I also think that this is largely due to mainstream media constantly pushing the narrative of racist police. One has to wonder how many of these people's opinions come from mainstream media and not actual police interactions. Because we need to be very, very clear on something. The overwhelming majority of Black Americans in this country are law-abiding citizens. I wanted to let that hang there. Because we talk about police and we talk about the Black community as if the Black community is constantly being harassed, interacting, breaking law. That's not the case. The overwhelming majority of Black Americans don't have interactions with the police. The majority of Black Americans are law-abiding citizens, just like everyone else. There's no difference, folks. They have higher crime rates in terms of violent crime, in terms of murder. I've gone over all that, but it's still incredibly rare. The overwhelming majority of Black citizens in this country are incredibly peaceful, law-abiding citizens. So let's not pretend that they're being out there committing crimes. I just hate the images. Anyway, what I'm saying is that because the majority of Black Americans don't actually interact with the police, then where are they getting this intrepidation of dealing with police from? If they haven't personally dealt with the police department, then that can only come from how the police are being portrayed in the media. And this is damaging to the Black community. This creates distrust. It makes it harder for police to work in the Black communities and to protect the Black community because there's fear and intrepidation. And there's a fear of people to come forward and speak when they have information that would be valuable in solving crimes. So it's to me, it's very damaging to the Black community that they have this image. And I really do think that it is the media that is largely responsible for it. So I'm going to get on to another thing here. I don't know why I switched my screens around. Does that keep you engaged and interested? I don't know. I'm going to change this back here. I've got another story. Let me see here. That's why, because I'm flipping through here to make sure that I'm seeing what I'm seeing. So let's get into this one. And we're going to get into, let me see here. No. Places that already have plaintiffs sue United States crime rates. There is a story here, gosh darn it, that I really wanted to get into. And I think I have it here somewhere. It's really engaging on here we go. Gosh darn. What am I, 75? All right, sorry. Let's transition this back. All right, plaintiffs sue to keep Minneapolis cops in the job. My wife sent me this story earlier today. She knows what I'm doing back here. She's supportive. She's trying to get me going. Plaintiffs sue to keep Minneapolis cops on the job. Now, as some of you may know, the Minneapolis City Council actually actually made the decision to abolish their police, start shrinking their police department pretty aggressively. And in response, a group of North Minneapolis residents is suing the city to compel it to maintain the legal minimum of police officers on the force. Group members say the number of cops has already dropped below that level. However, city officials say currently the department's staffing more than meets the standards set by the city charter. Plaintiffs Don and Sandra Samuels, and just in case you're wondering, this is Don and Sandra Samuels. They are not conservatives. They are community members there. I think one of them actually served on the city council. But this is who they are, because I don't want you to think this is a couple of white Trump supporters or MAGA people. These are black members of the local community who are liberal to the best of my knowledge. So anyway, we'll get back into this. Whoops, wrong one. I'm giving you a head up. All right. Don, a former city council member, said the council's attempt to defund the department has emboldened the criminal community. If you have a beef to settle, if you have ever dreamt of driving down West Broadway at 60 miles an hour, if you've ever wanted to do some open drug dealing, he said now is the time. Sandra said the pandemic is also to blame for the uptick in violence. People are more stressed than ever as the virus has threatened their lives and their jobs. And Sandra said now is not the time to try and reduce the police force. I understand people wanting to get rid of the police, she said, referring to the list of black men killed by the police. I feel that, but then wisdom kicks in and experience kicks in. Some Northside residents, particularly those living in neighborhoods that have seen high crime rates, have said the idea of making major changes to the department right now makes them worry about their safety. Another plaintiff, I'm not even going to try because I will get the name wrong, who is a board member with the Jordan Area Community Council, said crime had been on the decrease in the neighborhood before this year. Pew said neighbors appreciate the presence of officers. I understand that the police come after the fact. I understand they can't so much stop a crime, she said, but what they can do is, when you pick up the phone, there's a comfortability in that, knowing that someone is going to come see about me. This doesn't sound like a person who is, quote, speaking from privilege, as we've heard other people say. This sounds like a person who lives in an area where the police presence is incredibly appreciated because it does have a crime issue. So let's take a look. City officials say the most recent tally of officers employed by the MPD is 856. The suit states that the current level of staffing required under the charter, which is based on the city's population, is 743. Let's take a look here. The council has already made cuts to the current police budget, and Mayor Jacob Fry's proposed 2021 budget will not fill 100 open positions in the police department. The plaintiffs in the lawsuit are represented by the Upper Midwest Law Center, which is a part of the Center of the American Experiment. The Golden Valley-based organization is a conservative think tank that has also funded pro-police billboards around Minneapolis. Don and Sandra Samuels are not political conservatives, but Sandra said none of the other firms they reached out to would take the case. We don't have time to waste, she said. My interest is in saving lives. You want to talk about the walk away movement? You want to talk about liberals leaving the Democrat Party when they're reaching out for help? These are successful, engaged members of the black community reaching out to organizations that they feel should have helped them, should have represented them, and they had to go to a conservative think tank to get the help they needed. Think about that. Just give that some thought. But one of the things look, there's a lot of hate and discontent out there. We have a lot of fed up people. We have a lot of people searching for answers, and the police are an easy target. And as the police are an easy target, so is Joe Biden. And so I wanted to talk about this because I've been particularly hard on Joe Biden in the past. And I'm going to continue to be hard on him. When we talk about the 94 crime bill, and we talk about Joe Biden's involvement in that, and that's why I think he's a terrible choice for the Democrat ticket, but we have to put what he did in the context of the time, and then we can talk about why it was a bad decision. But we have to understand why the decision was made in the first place. So I'm going to get into these crime statistics here real quick. And I don't know if you folks can see it. I do not know what's in my bottom corner there. A little ad popping up. There we go. Stop seeing this ad. Thank you. All right, Google. All right, so let's take a look here. So you got to remember the crime bill was passed in the 90s, right? So let's take a look here from 1960. 1960, we have violent crime, not totals. That's not what I want to see. Violent crime per 100,000 people in 1960 to 2018. In 1960, the rate of violent crime per 100,000 people was 160.9 incidents per 100,000 people. By 1990, that number had climbed to 731.8. That's almost a 400% increase, over a 400% increase. Yeah, in violent crime. Property crime saw a similar increase. Murder rate almost doubled from 1960 at a 5.1 per 100,000 to 9.4, then 9.8. And so, in that is the context in which the 94 crime bill was passed. So we can blame Joe Biden on this all we want, but at the end of the day, 2/3 of the Congressional Black Caucus supported this bill. This was something that was being called for by black leadership. People on both sides of the aisle agreed on this bill. This wasn't just a Joe Biden thing. So why am I trying to forgive Joe Biden when I've beaten him over the head with this? Well, because this is poor leadership. This is following, not leading. And we should have addressed issues, socioeconomic issues, and we should have, at that point, taken a look at the war on drugs, kind of like we took a look at the war on prohibition, kind of like we looked at alcohol prohibition and said, this isn't working. It's leading to more violence, more crime, more people in prison. And instead of doubling down on the bad decision we made to engage in this war, we need to shift our focus to education, treatment, rehabilitation, and decriminalization. And we needed to get rid of the perverse incentives of drug dealers. That's what the left should have done back then. That's where they should have led from. They were watch 13 on Netflix. It's very obvious that the Democrats then were much more interested in winning than they were in leading. And that's why I have a problem with Joe Biden. Look, the Republicans have always been the law and order party. They're not hypocrites on it. They were the law and order party then. They're the law and order party now. Whether you agree with that or not, that's who they are. At least they're not being hypocritical. The Democrats now coming back and complaining about mass incarceration and police brutality and all these things. Look, you guys were part and parcel in making that happen, and your presidential candidate bragged about the bill. You should have been leading at the time. So I do think that it was the wrong move. I think that if we look at it through what was happening from a crime activity in the United States at the time, you could see why we ended up having to do what we did. The problem is that we're not talking about changing laws. I keep talking about this being a top-down, not a bottom-up solution, and how we need to solve this problem. If you take away the police, you're going to see these crime rates start creeping up. You can't leave everything else in place and just remove the police. If we go down here and we take a look, if you look at the emergence of Black Lives Matter, when they really started becoming prominent, they're kind of founded in 2012, and they've been growing. And you look at the violent crime rates here are holding relatively steady. They kind of ticked back up a little bit. Property crime has kind of continued to fall, which is great. The murder rate's a little bit higher than it was in 10. Forcible rape has been changed, and that's why the numbers have appear to have jumped so high. I have a huge fear that as the police departments shrink and as police become less engaged and much more cautious in their policing, which is a good thing, that you're going to see crime starting to spike. Over the last 2 years, from 2018 on, particularly in large metro areas, the homicide rate has been increasing dramatically. I think the homicide rate in Minneapolis has increased something like 95%, and I think the violent crime rate in New York is up over 200%. The numbers are astonishing. And this is police first not having the backing of their communities and of their government. Police literally being ordered to stand down in some circumstances, and you're seeing it. You have black leaders in Minneapolis suing the city to keep cops on the job. You understand? You look at the survey, you look at what's going on in Minneapolis, and you say defund the police and abolish the police is absolutely not the way we need to be moving in this country. We need to understand why we got where we got with the police. See, looks like my video just went out for some reason. See if I can get that back up. Hope you'll stick with me while I try and figure this out. Let's see. I lost the connection there on the video. Oh, there we go. We're back. All right. Nothing says top shelf production like dropping the video and then grabbing the camera, right? All right. What can I say? Still sorting it all out. Now my camera's going to probably tip right over. All right, we have a little bit different angle, and we're now out of focus. So, sorry, bear with me. What can I say? Technical difficulties. I'm wrapping this one up anyway. But bottom line is we really need to take a close look at what exactly it is we're doing and how we're going to start enacting some of these changes and what changes we want to see made so that we're doing and making the right decisions without putting the public in danger. So I just wanted to drop this quick video on defunding the police and this whole abolish the police movement. I think it's very the timing isn't right for it, and we really need to think carefully about what we're doing. So anyway, thank you guys for stopping by. I was going to make this one a little bit longer, but with some of the technical difficulties I have, I've kind of made my point. I'm going to cut this one a little short. I will be back on Sunday. I think I'm going to do a pre-recorded on Sunday, and then I will go back to doing live videos Monday through Friday. So please subscribe, turn on the notifications, and if you like the content, please